Hello again, and welcome back to the Life After High School video series. Dr. Marv Pickla, how are you? All right, you know that we've already covered a bunch of stuff. And yes, I'm going to use my notes to remember that all the things that we've covered. And you know why we're doing this? Because too often the classes that I teach, they say, sir, nobody talks about life skills anymore. And so I talked and I listened, and we've decided to do this Life After High School video series just to give everybody some helpful hints on their home front to get through life. Okay, so far in September, we talked about vehicle maintenance and buying a car. In October, we went over personal banking, all right, checking accounts and credit cards and all those kinds of things. And then in November, we talked about insurance. And just because you got a cheap car for a couple grand doesn't mean that you still won't have to buy insurance for that. And then in January, we did tax returns. Yes, it wasn't the most exciting thing that you can get to talk about, but you got to do it anyways. So we talked about that. In February, we were talking about cooking 101, how to do it on your own, try to save a few bucks, do it, so you can last for the week, all those kinds of things. And then lastly, last month, March, we talked about jobs. And yes, I got to be the kind of spokesman for that. And hopefully you grab some hints. But today, and this will be the last segment, the last episode, I guess, is what they call them on podcast world, for this semester. All right. And we won't be back until September, but for April, for this month, we're going to talk about budgeting and saving money, especially with those part-time jobs. And we have Cheyenne here from the credit union. Again, how about if you introduce yourself?
Hi, everybody. I'm Cheyenne. I work with Alpena Elkona Area Credit Union in our Oscoda branch. I'm their assistant branch manager. In addition to that, I am a certified financial wellness coach, which means I have an extensive amount of knowledge on budgeting and saving, and it's kind of my passion too when helping people. So I'm excited to share some of that with you guys.
Well, Cheyenne, it's great to have you here. We're trying to get local people that work in the community. So when you go into the credit union, there's a familiar face you can talk to, ask questions of. And so, Cheyenne, it's great to be here. But again, I promised everybody that we'd keep these short and to the point, 10 minutes-ish. Okay. All right. I'm not good at watching the clock. So let's start out by just talking about a personal budget. Everybody's got bills and stuff, but I tell you what, I've never done a good job of maintaining a budget. What should we start with?
It's old-fashioned, but start with a piece of paper, pen or a pencil. I say start with a little calendar and write down which days your bills are coming out, and then figure out what paychecks that those would land on and list it out, because seeing it right there in front of you is going to help you follow it the most.
You got to create a visual, you guys, and you can go online and print out a sample budget thing, okay? But we all have, maybe it's rent, maybe it's car payments, maybe credit cards, loans, food, all those kinds of things. So try and be as detailed, right, as possible when you make that list, because, those are for real, regular costs that you got to pay attention to and make sure you got enough money to cover it. How often do you think about updating, that list of fiscal responsibilities?
I say after 2 to 3 months, revisit your budget. You're going to know what's working for you and what's not. And a lot of people, the thing that I have to stress the most is always pay yourself. You have to work that into your budget out of each paycheck. And maybe after a month or so, you find out that it's a little more than you need, or maybe it's not enough. You're going to have to readjust that as well, even for any other maybe variable spending and everything.
Okay. And you notice I didn't include those extras, things like, going out, gas in the car, all those kinds of things. You gotta, think about what you're doing, how much, how often, and be honest with yourself, because, no, money doesn't grow on trees. At my age, I can tell you that for sure. No doubt about it. So when you're thinking about all these things, Do you include, now if you're married, of course, you include your spouse, other people that you might include in making up your budget as kind of a helpful person?
Absolutely.
Who?
I think your significant other, husband, wife, whoever, including them in that if your guys' finances are joint. Not everyone is. Budgets aren't a one size fits all. So you do whatever works for your household. And anybody within your household, I think, is good to include that may be contributing towards bills.
So think about it, you guys. If you are renting a room or renting a house with somebody, you got to kind of do it together because it can't be a last minute surprise that says, oh, we owe renter's insurance and whoops, and we got to do that. And yeah, ask your parents. Don't be afraid to do that. They've had to go through some of these same, budgeting processes on their own and just ask and take some notes and go from there. So you got the budget part at least started. You go and write down questions as you go along because you'll be looking for different answers along the way. All right. Now, saving money. People don't pay enough attention, do they, Cheyenne? Go ahead. What's some hints, helpful priorities when you're thinking about setting aside some money, saving it?
I think the first to start off with is you just have to begin. It's easier said than done. You got to let yourself begin that. And I say usually start with $20 to $50. If you're not a saver and you haven't saved before, you got to start off small. Start $20 to $50 and put it into a savings account. Create a sub account on your, credit union account.
You got to be a salesperson too.
Yeah, and just leave it there. Let it sit. Let it accrue interest. And then, from there, it's just going to grow. If you can resist not to touch it, that's great. But you also have to be realistic with yourself sometimes too, that sometimes you're going to have to dip into that. And that's where you got to really give yourself grace when you're saving because it's not always perfect.
So, and there's different kind of savings accounts. So you can, what that, so regular savings account, but there's also.
Yeah, so your regular savings account may not earn you the most in interest. Now, I'll say on the credit union, we have a money market that's a little bit higher than your typical savings. If you're looking to get higher than that and you don't need the funds right away, you can look into a certificate of deposit, or we call them CDs.
Yep.
So you could tie it up in a 1-year term, 6-month term, all the way up to 5-year terms, and they all have different interest rates. So usually it's to whatever is happening in your life, you'll know kind of how long you could have that money tied up for. With that comes if you do need the money and you need to take out of your certificate early, you do have to pay a penalty, usually the amount of interest you've accrued. So that's kind of the bummer, but again, life happens, but just keep with it, with the saving.
Well, and try and not dip into it unless it's an emergency. I mean, that's kind of, the message that we're trying to send to you because you don't think about savings early on. I didn't. And then all of a sudden you need some extra money and it's like, hey, Ma, Dad, help, and it happens. That's just the way it works, you guys. So there's regular savings accounts. There's money markets. Is there a minimum deposit that you have to make on those?
On the certificates, yes. You need at least $500 to get started. You could put just $500 in it or all the way on up to how much you have in there. There is no limit.
Okay, remember that on some of these savings accounts, there is a minimum amount that you got to put in and make sure you talk it over with the bank. And maybe you start with a regular savings and then move it as you save all that money, and get down to it. So thinking about other things like 401ks and IRA. I got all my notes here. And, do those come into play or not down the road?
I think they're good to get started with as soon as possible.
Okay.
I feel like a lot of employers offer a great 401k program and a match. So take advantage of that as soon as you can. Start putting money away as young as you are. When you can have it, do it. IRAs, you can establish right at the credit union level. We can open that for you. You can start putting into it for retirement. I think it's a great thing to start as soon as possible because we want to all retire early.
You got it. So think about that, you guys. There's different things. And if you work for a company, don't be shy. Ask them if they have like a 401k thing or a matching IRA or individual retirement account, IRA, okay? We use all these acronyms and we forget to explain them. So think about that. Ask the company, and it could be McDonald's, it could be, the manufacturer down the road that you're working for, part-time, full-time, in between time. Think about putting some money aside for savings. Guess what? We used up all of our time already. So, if you are watching this today, great. If you want to tune in back to the other ones that I listed off, you got to go back to the Alpena Community College website, check out their instructional videos. It's there. I'm the least tech guy known to man. You all know that, but I know you're going to know where to find them because there's at least one or two hints in every one of those, and I don't care how old you are. So appreciate you dialing in. Look forward to seeing you in the fall. And yes, what are we going to talk about? We're going to talk about time management. All right? And you can hold me to that promise. I will be back with you with hopefully another specialist in the area. Cheyenne, thanks for joining us today. All right. And we'll see you guys in the fall. Thanks for watching.